as Thursday was the 150th anniversary of the appearance day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, I made a commitment to all of you that we would spend some classes after his appearance day discussing one of his important books. One of his many important books is Sri Brahma Samhita. The photograph that you see, or the painting on the screen, is the BBT cover indicating there's Lord Brahma at a time of creation when there wasn't any creation yet. And he's sitting on his lotus, pretty small lotus, and he's wondering what to do. So he is very intelligent. He saw the lotus. He deducted, there's a stem to the lotus. If I climb down the stem, I'll find out where I came from. So he climbed down the stem, and he climbed down the stem, and climbed down the stem, and he couldn't find the end to the stem. And then he heard a sound. Tapa. Tapa. 3 times. Tapa. And he knew what that meant. So he climbed back up the stem, and he was ready for performing tapa. And the painting is showing, as he was ready to perform his tapa, he received mantra. The mantra that Lord Brahma received was from Saraswati. And the Saraswati from whom he received his mantra was not his wife, because she wasn't manifest yet. In fact, nothing was manifest. According to Brahma Samhita, it was darkness in all directions. There was no sun, there was no moon, there was no light, there was nothing. There was no Saraswati, there was nothing. But the Saraswati from whom he received this mantra is the original expansion of Srimati Radharani in the spiritual realm. And he heard the mantra. And he knew what to do, because he's very intelligent. He chanted the mantra. And as he chanted the mantra and chanted the mantra and chanted the mantra, after some time, he heard another sound. And the painting is showing the sound of Krishna's flute. All of this is within Brahma Samhita. The painting is just illustrating a section of the Brahma Samhita. And from his mouth came that sound in the form of Kama Gayatri. So there's 2 Gayatris he received. Gopal mantra, and Sanatan Goswami's Brihat Bhagavatamrita, he calls it the Madan Gopal mantra. Same mantra amongst the mantras that we receive in his disciplic succession. We receive them in disciplic succession. But he received them originally from the primordial goddess, the goddess of fortune, Saraswati, in her transcendental state, and from Krishna's flute. The second mantra, it's right in the text. It's right in the text of Sri Brahma Samhita. If you'd like to find out what Gayatri mantra is, just read the text. It's not initiation, but you can read it in the text. Kama Gayatri. And he meditated on those 2 Gayatris, and he then began his work. First he got realization of who he is, beyond the understanding that he's not the body, he's spirit soul. But even more and more and more, he got the realization of his spiritual form and his spiritual relationship with the primeval source of everything, Govinda. And then he went about creation. So I'm right now giving you a description of the structure of Sri Brahma Samhita. There's 4 parts, or one can say 3 parts. The first part is just, we're going to hear about tomorrow, or the next class. The first verse is the essence of the entire Sri Brahma Samhita. The entire Sri Brahma Samhita is not the book that we have. The book that we have is chapter 5 of 100 chapters, but it was all that was remaining. And how do we know there are 100 chapters if there's only one remaining? Because we'll see shortly, it's described in the Puranas that there is such a Samhita called Brahma Samhita, and it has 100 chapters. He found chapter 5 at the Adikeshava temple. We'll hear it some more as we go forward. And in that chapter 5, the very first verse, we'll hear more about this with our first verse. The very first verse is the Pari Bhasha Sutra. What's that? It's the essence of a text in one verse. Sutra, like. Code, like. And then the entire rest of the book, not just chapter 5, but the other 100 chapters with all their verses, are resting upon and packed up in that one verse. So that's what we're going to hear next. This particular session is just an introduction to Sri Brahma Samhita. And why Sri Brahma Samhita? Because the version that we have, the BBT version that we have, was composed by translated in English and commented in English by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So on his 150th anniversary, I said, well, I'd like to spend some time glorifying him or doing service unto him by explaining Sri Brahma Samhita. So that's what we're going to be doing next few classes. And we'll begin, because many of you know these verses, but here they are. We'll offer his prana mantras or pranati mantras. We can say them together, please. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shivate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Dayataya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhuryojvala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatadine Rupanuga Viruddha Apasiddhanta Dvanta Hadine. So those are, with Prabhupada we just have 2, and Bhaktisiddhanta, with his scholarly followers, they gave him 4. Bhaktivinoda has 1, Gorkishore has 1. 4 prana mantras. And here's a nice little graphic that's cover with the title Sri Brahma Samhita. Now note, it's not Brahma Samhita, it's Brahma Samhita. What's the difference? Brahma is Lord Brahma, pictured here, and Brahma is the absolute truth. It's a Samhita about the absolute truth. And the Samhitas are parts of the Vedas. Now, I wanted to put some photographs of the Adikeshava temple, but I didn't get that far. We'll do it for the next time. The book, chapter 5 of Sri Brahma Samhita, was found during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's South India tour, where he and his assistant Krishnadas went to the Payasvini River. They took their bath in the river and then went to see the Adikeshava temple, Adikeshava deity at the Adikeshava temple. And while there, he heard Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard some brahmanas reciting Sri Brahma Samhita. And he was very attracted. And he began, not just attracted, he began dancing in ecstasy and exhibiting symptoms of ecstasy. And they were astonished to see his ecstasy. And he was impressed or attracted, transcendently attracted to Sri Brahma Samhita. So he stayed at the temple long enough for the devotees there to provide him with a handwritten copy. They could keep the original. And he took a handwritten copy. And we find in Chaitanya Charitamrita that he kept that book and had copies made along with Krishna Karnamrita. The Sri Brahma Samhita became two very cherished books. When he returned to South India, he gave a copy to Ramananda Roy. When he got to Puri, he gave a copy to Swarup Damodar and to Vasudev Datta. And in course of time, the book became well known that Lord Chaitanya has approved it. And they all became familiar with its contents. Now that's found in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but we wouldn't even know about that unless Prabhupada translated Chaitanya Charitamrita. And some time passed in the Hare Krishna movement, and somebody found a copy of Sri Brahma Samhita. The person that found it was Prabhupada's Sanskrit assistant. He was Pradyumna Prabhu, had a PhD in Sanskrit, and Prabhupada was engaging him in Sanskrit work with his publications. One of the primary services of Pradyumna was establishing synonyms. Of course, Prabhupada had to approve everything, and he probably changed some things, but that was his Sanskrit service. So he found this book, Pradyumna, found this book in a library in 1966. And he then wrote a letter to Prabhupada asking, is it okay to read the book? And Prabhupada wrote back a letter. Here's a portion of the letter. Brahma Samhita contains the highest of all spiritual knowledge. It is the gist of Srimad Bhagavatam, where everything about Krishna is perfectly described. Now, how many verses does the Srimad Bhagavatam have? 18,000. How many verses does Sri Brahma Samhita have? 62. So it's a synopsis or gist. And we'll hear shortly what are those items within this gist of Brahma Samhita, but it's packed. It's packed. The rest of Prabhupada's letter goes, not the rest, but one who reads Brahma Samhita very carefully and scrutinizingly can understand everything of Krishna without any fault. I recommend, therefore, that all my students read Brahma Samhita very carefully, especially because it was translated personally by my spiritual master Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, Prabhupada to Pradyumna. So it's good for us to learn this book. However, the book, if you've read the book, or had read any of Bhaktisiddhanta's writings, his language is really high. The concepts aren't bewildering, but his language is. Although English wasn't his first language, he's just that kind of a personality. He had very interesting command of the English. Could you hear? Prabhupada, in addition to providing us with this Sri Brahma Samhita, he made a recording of the Govinda prayers. It's one section. So I was going down the path of what the composition. There's the enlightenment of Brahma. There's the process of creation in sutra-like form that parallels Srimad Bhagavatam. And then once the creation is built, then comes the statement, he became well acquainted with the ocean of truth. And then he presents the second section. So the Bhagavatam has 10 topics. And of those 10 topics, 2 are the creation of Vishnu and the subcreation of Brahma, Sarga and Visarga. And the first third of Sri Brahma Samhita does those. What Vishnu does, and then what Brahma does to bring creation into place. Step by step by step. The second section of Brahma Samhita is the well-known Govinda prayers. So Prabhupada recorded the Govinda prayers. And his recording voice is out of this world. Transcendental sound vibration. The subject matter is, and his voice is also. Here's a little Prabhupada story, right in the midst of this. I heard a narration of the Tirupati temple. You may know, the Tirupati temple was built 100%, almost 100%, from distribution of books. Because somehow or other, Revati Raman got permission from the TTD, the people in charge of the Tirupati temple, that he could set up bookstalls on the walkway leading up to the temple. And so they sold so many books and so many books and so many books, they paid for the temple at the bottom of the hill, the ISKCON temple. They were so good at selling books that the TTD folks said, why don't you take charge of the Luglu distribution? Because our people aren't as good as your people. I said, sure. So their brahmacharis took charge of the Luglu distribution, and it doubled. It's because the devotees are good. So the story was, one day there was a man who was staring at the bookstall. Didn't say anything, staring at the bookstall. And one of the devotees thought, the man's a thief. He's looking for a chance to steal. So he left behind the booth and went out to confront the man in like a confrontational mood. I don't know what he said. But another devotee saw him do that. And the other devotee that saw him do that went and said, what are you doing? This man's a celebrity. He's a musician, so-and-so and so-and-so, well-known, Karnataka celebrity in music. And so the devotee that knew him went and said, my apologies. This fellow thought because you were just standing there looking in a very concentrated way that you didn't have a good intention. And the man said, if I said his name, you'd go like, wow. The man said, I was just entranced by the voice of the person whose singing you were amplifying. It was Prabhupada's voice. Not singing Hare Krishna, but other things, just being broadcast by, not a big loudspeaker, but a little speaking system. And he was lost in hearing, he said to the devotees, this personality is from another realm. I'm so charmed. You have other recordings. He wanted to purchase recordings of Prabhupada's voice. Does anybody know who I'm talking about? What's the name? Say it louder so everyone can hear you. Bala Murti Krishna. Murali. Bala Murali Krishna. Yeah, I know what Murali is. I know what Bala is. I know what Krishna is. But I don't know the person. But some of you do. So Prabhupada, way back when, like, in the late 60s, before ISKCON was booming, he went to a recording studio and made a recording of his singing the Brahma Samhita, the Govinda prayers. And at the end of the Govinda prayers is the final part of Sri Brahma Samhita. It's a very important, very relevant section for all of us, last 5-6 verses. Brahma asks Krishna a question. Question is, I experienced all these amazing realizations, but now I'm going to have to go build the universe. And how am I going to remember all these wonderful realizations while I'm building the universe? Like I had good sadhana this morning. Now I got to go to the office and do my work. How do I keep Krishna the center while I'm going to the office and doing my work? Good question, isn't it? And the answer is at the concluding portion of Sri Brahma Samhita. So read it. And here's a reference to Sri Brahma Samhita, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found Sri Brahma Samhita at the Adikeshava temple. Here's the verse, here's the translation of the verse. It's 2 verses. There is no scripture equal to the Brahma Samhita as far as the final spiritual conclusion is concerned. Indeed, that scripture is the supreme revelation of the glories of Lord Govinda, for it reveals the topmost knowledge about him. Since all conclusions are briefly presented in Brahma Samhita, it is essential among Vaishnava scriptures, which Bhaktisiddhanta made his commentary. Now, historically, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted and popularized Sri Brahma Samhita, Jiva Goswami was the first to comment in Sanskrit. We're going to read a little bit his invocation section of his Sanskrit commentary to Sri Brahma Samhita. And then time passed, and following Jiva Goswami's commentary, Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a Bengali commentary. Following his father's Bengali commentary and Jiva Goswami's commentary, Bhaktisiddhanta wrote an English commentary with really high English that's baffling. Now, in the purport to this Chaitanya Charitamrita verse, here's what is written. The philosophical conclusion of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, simultaneous oneness and difference, is presented. The chapter, 62 verses. The chapter, this is chapter 5 of 100, also presents methods of devotional service, the 18-syllable Vedic hymn, discourses on the soul, the super soul, and fruitive activity, an explanation of Kama Gayatri, Kama Bija, and the original Mahavishnu, and a detailed description of the spiritual world, specifically Goloka Vrindavan. That was a long sentence. The Brahma Samhita also explains the demigod Ganesh, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, the origin of Gayatri Mantra, the form of Govinda, and his transcendental position and abode. the living entities, the highest goal, the goddess Durga, the meaning of austerity, the 5 gross elements, love of Godhead, impersonal Brahman, the initiation of Lord Brahma, and the vision of transcendental love enabling one to see the Lord. The steps of devotional service are also explained. The mind, Yoga Nidra, the goddess of fortune, devotional service in spontaneous ecstasy, incarnations beginning with Ramachandra, deities, the conditioned soul, and its duties. The truth about Lord Vishnu, prayers, Vedic hymns, Lord Shiva, the Vedic literature, personalism and impersonalism, good behavior, and many other subjects in 62 verses. Packed. There is also a description of the sun and the universal form of the Lord. All these subjects are conclusively explained in a nutshell in Brahma Samhita. So it's a light book, and it's a heavy book. Now here's a little bit of the background, because this class is just meant to be an introduction, and then we're going to start with verse 1 and cover it. It'll take at least two classes to cover verse 1 because it's so important. Brahma Samhita, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, it's in the category of the Smritis. Not in the it's a Sattvata Samhita. Sattvata, the right translation means in relation with the Supreme Truth. So it's Sri Brahma, the Absolute Truth, Brahma Samhita. So Samhita is a category of a type of literature. The topic is the Absolute Truth, Sattvata Samhita. And it's not Shrutis, but it's an essential Vedic text. It's part of the composition of Vyas. Now, next, Prabhupada has written that this Brahma Samhita is specifically mentioned in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. As the Puranas are Smritis, the Samhitas are also Smritis, and it's mentioned in Brahma Vaivarta Purana. So it's an authorized Vedic text, in other words. And in multiple places, Srila Prabhupada has indicated, there's a list of where he's put this in his books, that Brahma was both the author and the speaker. Now, author and speaker, because it wasn't written, it was written by Vyas, but author in the sense that he spoke it. And then later compiled, because Vyas, as we know, had the capacity to see past, present, and future, right? This young girl. Do you know the word for Vyas being able to see past, present, and future? What's the Sanskrit word for time? Kala. And 3 phases of time are trikala. And to know 3 phases of time, trikala gya. Knowing gya, 3 phases of time. Vyas had that capacity. We don't know what's going on right now perfectly, because we're imperfect beings. But Vyas wasn't a imperfect; he was a perfect, and his knowing perfectly was past, present, future. He could look at the past and know perfectly. He can look in the future. He can know perfectly. He can look at the present, know perfectly. So he looked in the past. He also looked in the future, and saw Kali Yuga is coming. So he did something. And when he looked in the past, and because Brahma was the speaker and the author, because he spoke it, Vyas wrote it. Vyas wrote it, as mentioned in the above referenced in Brahma Vaivarta Purana. He wrote the Puranas and he wrote the Samhitas. There's other Samhitas besides Brahma Samhita, and he wrote them all. And that's not in the Shruti section of the Vedas, but the Smriti section of the Vedas, just like the reference from Bhagavatam is the Pancharatras. What's some examples of Pancharatra? Narada Pancharatra is something that we utilize or we engage with. Narada Pancharatra is the authoritative scripture that teaches us the procedure for how to do things like deity worship. Narada Pancharatra. It's a Vedic text. And there's the Vedic way, the Agamas have that. I'm giving you unnecessary information maybe, but there's the Vedic way of performing worship, and there's the Pancharatrika way of performing worship. We worship according to the Pancharatrika system. It's an authorized system. It's a Vedic system. And it's like the Puranas are to the rest of the Vedas. It's a system of worship or a system of how to do things according to our present circumstance, the Kali Yuga circumstance, where all the strictures of the previous ages are not easy to meet. The Agamas are there for that period of time. The Pancharatras are there for this period of time. For example, many of you know the 6 Goswamis. And amongst the 6 Goswamis, one of the 6 Goswamis was the eldest. The eldest of the 6 Goswamis was who? Sanatana Goswami. So one of the compositions of Sanatana Goswami was Hari Bhakti Vilas. Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's a text, essentially, it's a how-to manual, how to do everything. How to observe Ekadasi, how to observe Janmashtami, what are the procedures for taking sannyas, how to worship the deity, how to live the life of a Vaishnav according to the Pancharatras, because it's drawn from that source of literature. And he just compiled it with the essential assistance from Gopal Bhatta Goswami. He's one of the 6 Goswamis, Gopal Bhatta Goswami. As the son, Gopal was the son of the chief priest in Sri Rangam, Venkata Bhatta. He learned all of how the Sri Vaishnavas engage in deity worship in Sri Rangam, because he was the son of the chief priest. And he also knew the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya had spent 4 months of the rainy season living in their home. Venkata Bhatta invited him to reside in his home during the rainy season. The little Gopal was just 6 years old, but he associated with him regularly, so he knew from that association Lord Chaitanya's teachings and his emphasis, and he knew from his father the procedures of the Sri Vaishnavas. So as a young man, he compiled a vast body of literature, the how-to manual, and gave it to Sanatana Goswami and said, please, I request you 2 things. Please put this into a publishable form, nicely organized. And 2, please don't mention my name. Because that was Gopal Bhatta's mood. He didn't want to be in the foreground. He wanted to be in the background. Sanatana Goswami gets the credit for Hari Bhakti Vilas, but it was both of them. Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. And it's drawn from the Pancharatra. It's the same body of literature as the Brahma Samhita. It's in the Smriti section of the Vedas. Here's a little text where Jiva Goswami, because he was the first one to comment, because he was a follower of Chaitanya, ardent follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and an incredible literary person, Jiva Goswami. When he wrote his commentary on Sri Brahma Samhita, he also wrote a Mangala Charana. Mangala, we know what Mangala means. Just like Mangalarti, auspicious arti. Mangala Charana, the verses creating auspiciousness. You're going to sit in the front row, you're going to have to be really patient and listen. Can you do that? You sure? I'm going to check you out. Make sure you're patient and you listen. Okay. Here's Jiva Goswami's Mangala Charana, translated in English. Within my heart, I worship the splendor of Lord Krishna's transcendental form. I desire that by Lord Krishna's mercy, I will be able to explain the verses of Brahma Samhita. It should be with a short A, not a long A. Although the Brahma Samhita is a very difficult book, the commentaries of the sages have made it easy to understand. Now, what were those commentaries of the sages? Because Jiva Goswami wrote the first commentary, at least in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's saying that some commentaries means from other disciplic successions than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there were commentaries. He doesn't say who they are, who the authors, where can you get a copy in your library, or didn't say. My words follow their explanations. Although the Brahma Samhita contains 100 chapters, because this chapter briefly describes Lord Krishna's transcendental form, it is the best. Plus, where's the other 99? No indication. The same transcendental sweetness the pure-hearted devotees see in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vaishnava Shastras is also present in the Brahma Samhita. For this reason, my heart is now happy. After due reflection, in this book, I have lightly touched on the same topics more elaborately explained in my Sri Krishna Sandarbha. That's our last slide for this, our time together just now. So now we have a third of the 6 Goswamis. Sanatana Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Jiva Goswami. Jiva Goswami was the most prolific. Sanatana Goswami was the eldest and took that leadership role in many, many, many ways. Many, many ways. And there's Jiva Goswami, Gopal, Jiva, and Sanatana Goswami. So, one of the things that Jiva Goswami did, in essence, he wrote 3 different commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam. That's a lot. And one of them was a verse by verse like Prabhupada did. Bhaktivedanta purports to Srimad Bhagavatam. He called it Krama Sandarbha. Krama means step. Krama Sandarbha. Every verse, almost every verse, the entire Bhagavatam. Second, he made a commentary on the 10th canto because Sanatana Goswami entrusted his 10th canto Bhagavatam commentary to Jiva Goswami and asked him, please edit it. So Jiva Goswami edited it and he commented on his commentary. 10th canto commentary. A third, is Gopal Champu. Gopal Champu is a different category of literature than a commentary per se. It's a champu. And he wrote a book. One of his books was how to write a champu. Then he wrote a champu. about Gopal, which is essentially a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam in Vrindavan and outside Vrindavan. Krishna's pastimes. Like 10th canto commentary, called it a Champu, Gopal Champu. And then the Magnus Opus, the big one, was 6 parts called Sandarbhas, which he's making reference to here. And one of those 6 was Krishna Sandarbha. And he's writing, when he wrote Brahma Samhita commentary, that he's just going to touch on principal topics here in Brahma Samhita commentary, and elaborately he's going to touch on these topics in Krishna Sandarbha, which he does. Now, some of you may have been with us when we were observing the 150th anniversary celebration of Bhaktisiddhanta, and I shared something on a personal note, and I'm going to end with this. When I was a college kid, the first literature I got was an article by Bhaktisiddhanta that was printed in the Back to Godhead magazine. And the details I already said, but reading it left me in awe of Bhaktisiddhanta. Like, it took me 3 hours to read the article because the language was so elevated. I had to have a dictionary, look up every 4th word and stuff like that. But his association helped me experience a consciousness that I had never experienced before. So my highest regard goes to Bhaktisiddhanta, and that's partly the inspiration to spend this time, the next 3 classes, discussing Brahma Samhita, because it's a principal composition by Bhaktisiddhanta to write an English commentary. But it's difficult to understand. Try it. It's difficult to understand. His language is difficult to understand. The concepts aren't so difficult. His language is difficult. So I decided I would like to make a readable, intelligible, expanded commentary on his commentary. That's a project taking a long time because I keep myself busy doing other things. But in course of time, Krishna permitting, in honor of Bhaktisiddhanta, who was following his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, was following Jiva Goswami, was following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who authorized this literature as a Vedic text worthy of all his followers to read. So one day, Krishna permitting, there'll be a rather lengthy, not concise, elaborate, intelligible explanation of Brahma Samhita. So it has a special place in my heart. So I'm sharing it, with you in honor of Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance day. And I think when we have our next class, I'll show you some photographs of the Adikeshava temple where the book was found. It was with the Vaishnavas. They had it in their library, but he hadn't received it until he went to the Adikeshava temple. And now it's all over the world in so many languages, etc. I don't know how the translators translate Bhaktisiddhanta's language into their language. I don't know how they do it. Somehow they do it. So there's an introduction. And then our next class will be verse 1. Brahma Samhita. Any discussion? This is a good time, Saturday, midday. Many people can come. The kids can come. Nice to see you guys. Comments? This young man gets some service. You did this the other day too, right? Yes? The first question generally takes a little longer. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, this is a bit technical question. So you mentioned the Sattvata means relation to the Supreme Truth.
Yes.
And in many places, like in the Bhagavatam, also in Vishnu Sahasranam, and also it says Sattvatam Pati, refers to the Lord.
Yes.
So that means there are many Sasvatas and he's the Pati of all the Sasvatas, or?
Yeah, I mean, he is the Lord. He's the Lord of Lords.
But Sasvata, if that word itself means absolute truth, then how can it be? So it seems a bit contradictory.
No, he's the Lord of Lords. There's Lords and he's the Lord of Lords.
So that's like supreme absolute truth.
Yeah, that's how. Yes. Yes. There's Ishvara, there's Parameshvara. And Ishvara. So let's say Vishnu. He's Ishvara. And he has a Lord. Bhagavan. It's like that. Don't get stuck. Yes, in the back.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. It's a clarification question. So you mentioned that Brahma Samhita is a Shruti. It comes under Samhita section of Vedas. Vedas are eternal.
Vedas are eternal.
Eternal. And this, my understanding, is spoken by Brahma before he started the creation.
That's right.
After he did the tapa and chanted Gayatri.
Right, no problem.
So he was empowered and he chanted this beautiful Samhita.
Right.
So I'm trying to understand. And then
No
Vyasadeva wrote it.
No problem. Let me ask you. Is Bhagavad Gita eternal? Wait a minute. He spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So how's it eternal? Some different context, same question. Brahma spoke. It's eternal. Is that a problem? Does that solve the problem?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. So
Krishna says to Arjuna, the knowledge was lost. I spoke to the sun god. So where did it exist before he spoke to the sun god Vivaswan? It's eternal. The truths that he spoke are eternal. Same. Like that.
thank you, Guru Maharaj. I'm appreciating that Samhita, which is spoken even before the creation starts, we are able to access it now by the mercy of.
Is that a problem?
No, I'm just appreciating. So, thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Behind you, over there. Wave your arm. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. This is a question about Gayatri Mantra.
Okay.
So in general, we hear that Gayatri Mantra should not be recited by everybody. So what is the stand on, should it be chanted only when somebody gets initiated, or the mantra is given by the Guru, or they can just hear it or chant it?
Three things. The words of Gayatri Mantra are printed in texts. So somebody that can go to the text and read the text, they can read the mantra. And that's not a no. That's okay, because it's an authorized mantra in a text, an authorized text. So it's in a text. But 2, one must receive that mantra for its efficacy to be experienced in disciplic succession from a guru. One can read it in a book, and it's not the same as, and reciting it, not the same as receiving it from guru and reciting it. Step 3. Gayatri mantras are meant to be either, sometimes the English translation is murmur, and sometimes silently. In either case, it's not to be audible by all. For yourself to hear softly, murmur, or in your mind, not even audible to you, but in your mind. That's the statement of Shastra. Now, having said that, what happened when the guru of Ramanujacharya gave him mantra? Keep it silent. Don't tell anybody. And he went up on a top of a tower and shouted it out loud, because if it's so powerful, everyone should hear it. So there's rules, and then there's spontaneous devotion. So some people like rules, and some people like spontaneous devotion. Rules are meant to be followed. In general, rules are meant to be followed. So I just gave you the rules. They're meant to be followed. So when that stage comes for someone, you or any one of us, to receive Gayatri Mantra, it's whispered or murmured or just in your mind. Audible for yourself only. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Okay, let's go online.
This question is by Shrida Das. It says, "Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. May I kindly understand what is the difference between Vedic and Pancharatrika Vidhi? May I kindly know if it is the same as Smarta and Vaishnava Vidhis?"
No. Pancharatriki Vidhi is also part of the Vedas. There's Vaidika. The Sanskrit is different. The rules are different. The Pancharatras is Vedic, and the Sanskrit is different. The rules are different, but they're part of the Vedas for time and place. They're both Vedic. And Smarta is another term altogether. It's not Vedic. They're Brahmins that claim to be Brahmins but aren't really Brahmins, and they're Smartas. And they do other things besides follow either the Vaidika or the Pancharatrika systems. Okay, we're questioned out. Okay, so we'll see you again for text 1 of Sri Brahma Samhita. And I'm going to have some additional images, the Adikeshava temple and some nice photographs of Bhaktisiddhanta. Let's borrow from what we did on Thursday. And then we'll start with text 1. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki, Gaur Premanandi.